earthquake, honky tonk man, the Heart Foundation, the list goes on and on. You got to get your head up. Come on, what else do I have to do to you, man? Listen, there's no doubt about it. You're going to be the best. This is going to be the greatest show of your life. Hey, you need a microphone? Come on, Blake, don't run off. Blake, come back. Blake!
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Bagpipe Report. My name is Blake Norton, and for, the next 57 minutes, we're going to bring you the very best of professional wrestling, the news, the insider gossip, and much, much more right here on TWC. We're going to kick it off this week with the big story making the rounds this week. NWA TNA, their weekly pay-per-view, is no more. September 8th is the final episode. We talked about it last week. It became official with the press release. Dixie Carter from TNA officially announced September 8th is their final show. It's going to feature the showdown they've been building for months now. Jeff Hardy versus Jeff Jarrett for the NWA Heavyweight Championship. After that show, they're going to wait another 2 months, and then they're going to Sirius pay-per-view. They're going to do it WWE style. They're going to be doing pay-per-views once a month. It's going to be Sunday nights, starting with Victory Road on November the 7th. So they're moving to that monthly pay-per-view format in a bid to, in a lot of ways, what they're doing right now is emulating WWE. We've already heard them talk about wanting to go head-to-head with WWE. This is just another move as they move into WWE territory. A lot of pay-per-view companies have already picked them up. In Demand, Dish Network, Shaw, Viewer's Choice up in Canada. So it looks like this plan has a lot going behind it. In addition to that, there's a lot of talk right now that to make up for the date they're going to lose, of course, they're still going to tape Impact for Fox Sports Net. They're going to lose that Wednesday date, so they're talking about doing house shows. They haven't officially formally been announced yet, but word going around the talent is basically, don't worry about it too much. You're not going to drop shows. In fact, we're hoping to have more and more shows for TNA talent as time goes on. An interesting note is that Dixie Carter said in the press release, she called NWA the new wrestling alternative. The last couple of months, TNA has tried to distance themselves a little bit from the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, and by changing NWA from National Wrestling Alliance to New Wrestling Alternative, they might be looking to do that even more. As things stand right now, we've got another couple of months here on TWC of NWA TNA pay-per-views to show you 100% for free every Wednesday night. And when we get to the finish of that, we're going to be moving forward with new Impact and hopefully more NWA coverage right here on the Wrestling Channel. So stay tuned. The always entertaining and sometimes frustrating Ultimate Warrior continued on with his coherent and usual reverent self on eBay this week. The Ultimate Warrior is auctioning off some of his memorabilia. That includes ring gear from some of his most famous matches and the World Wrestling Federation Championship, which is made just for him. I'm going to take a little look right here. I swear to God, he's asking for $35,000 for his old WWF Championship title. Whether it's worth that or not is up to you, but I'm thinking he should auction off his auctions because the way he writes them is so freaking hilarious, he should have to pay for them. Here's a look at how he's promoting his gear on eBay.com. You can head on, you can check it out. His ring gear is going for thousands upon thousands of dollars. Last I checked, about $4,000 was put up by one fan. Ultimate Warrior ring gear. I know you're thinking this can't be true. No way. No way! Genuine Ultimate Warrior wrestling gear? The real thing? No freaking way! And this guy is an extreme conservative mind. Take a breath. It's true, Mark the Bold. It's genuine. It's rare. Very, very rare. I own it. Who am I? My name is Warrior, and I am the creator, owner, and performer of the one and the only Ultimate Warrior. It's great stuff, isn't it? Check out the belt. What more needs to be said? It's genuine. It's real. It's true. I own it. I am Warrior, the creator, owner, and performer of the Ultimate Warrior, former WWF Heavyweight Champion. Ultimate Warrior was the only talent who wore the colored Heavyweight Championship belt, period. Ultimate Warrior was the only one with the blue Heavyweight Championship belt, period. How could there be someone else with a different Heavyweight Championship belt if we already know that there's someone who never wore a colored one? You know what I'm saying here? It's just not making much sense. But if you enjoy this stuff, Check it out. It's very funny. eBay.com. By the time you see this, I figure the belt and the jacket will probably be already gone because the clock is ticking on down. We've got figures and much, much, much more. So if you want a good laugh for free, which is very hard in wrestling these days, check out the Wrestling Channel or check out eBay.com for the Ultimate Warrior. Following their somewhat non-finish at SummerSlam, looks like WWE is going to have John Bradshaw Layfield and Undertaker continue to feud over the WWE Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown. It looks right now like the two are set to headline No Mercy this coming October. In a completely unrelated story, a SmackDown house show in Richmond earlier this week was canceled due to poor ticket sales. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the Blue Media on the phone talking about 3PW Propane Pro Wrestling. This past weekend, they had what was said to be an excellent show. The main event was a fatal four-way with Christopher Daniels walking away the new 3PW Heavyweight Champion. In other news from our assorted promotions right here on TWC, Ring of Honor news. It looks like Doug Williams, our own English hero, the pure wrestling champion from Ring of Honor, there's a lot of talk that he's going to be going up against Samoa Joe, the straightforward Ring of Honor heavyweight champion for any kind of wrestling, or if you're Joe, getting the crap beaten out of you wrestling. The two are set to have a feud in the upcoming months, and there's already talk that they're going to be having some matches in the next couple of weeks where each man will get to pick each other's opponent in anticipation for the one-on-one match happening down the road. Doug Williams defended his pure wrestling title just this past weekend in England against Double C. He walked away with the title intact and onwards back to the United States to continue defending that heavyweight championship for Ring of Honor. The last couple of months has seen a new dress code enter WWE locker rooms. Now, an interesting report in the Pro Wrestling Torch this past week said that a lot of wrestlers have been very vocal about the new uniforms. It appears that what they're being asked to do is dress in more professional attire on their way to the arena and on their way back as well, and a lot of talent haven't been so happy about this. One criticism from a lot of talent, apparently, according to the Torch, is that they feel that it takes away from the individuality of the characters. Obviously, if you've got an edge character who might be, maybe more in the past, a dude, Chris Jericho, who's known for his elaborate leather pants and his crazy outfits. Of course, there's other wrestlers like Triple H and Ric Flair, which seem to suit the persona perfectly, but as of right now, WWE is being so strict on the rule that even Jerry the King Lawler can't show his big hairy chest every Monday night. Other criticism from wrestlers has said that why are we having to dress up this way if we're also flying coach and if we're also packing 5 people into a rental car because of the payoffs of the house shows being so low that we can't afford to go any higher rates or get a car for ourselves? Doesn't that look bad to the fans? And one other wrestler apparently said, I wonder if Stone Cold Steve Austin came back, if they'd force him to change from his Stone Cold shirt and his jeans to a nice pair of slacks. Food for thought. Instructor David Perry from Penn State University became a hero to wrestling fans all over the world this past week. I thought it was really goofy when my girlfriend, who goes to college in Seattle, she called me a couple of weeks ago and said, yeah, next semester I'm doing baseball history in college. Well, now we've done one better. David Perry is doing a course on professional wrestling. And apparently Captain Lou Albano's book, The Idiot's Guide to Professional Wrestling, is going to be some core reading material. According to some official words from Penn State and David Perry himself, seminar facility students' adjustment to college life. Topics range from Gorgeous George to the National Wrestling Alliance to Vince McMahon's attempt to nationalize the wrestling industry. Text is Captain Lou Albano's Complete Idiot's Guide to Professional Wrestling. Homework includes watching Raw on Monday nights and making weekly visits to various wrestling websites. Cough, thewrestlingchannel.tv. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out and to see how our students do on this grade, but I know a lot of people who wouldn't mind if they added this course to colleges over here in the UK and Ireland. Call your professor, see what you can do. For this week's Move of the Week, we head down to Florida for MLW. It's Jimmy Yang versus Sanjay Dutt, two of the biggest high flyers in professional wrestling today. You can see Jimmy working for WWE right now under the name Akio on SmackDown. Meanwhile, Sanjay Dutt is right here on TWC. We've seen him for MLW. We've seen him a top star in NWA TNA and many more other wrestling organizations. This particular move is very interesting. You got a Hurricane Rana, a beautiful looking Hurricane Rana, but you've got this big flip from the top rope first. The balance is amazing. It's a really nice spot from two amazing athletes. Here it is, your Move of the Week from TWC.
Beats Jimmy Yang with a punch. Goes up top. Are you kidding me?
It's Supercard time, and this Sunday at 8 p.m. we have a special Supercard. It's one we placed together right here in TWC. It showcases the very best performances from one of our favorite wrestlers, fallen angel Christopher Daniels. He is undisputably one of the greatest wrestlers in the world today. We've got him wrestling in England for FWA. We've got him in Ring of Honor, NWA, TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling as the Curry Man. Here's a little look at one of the best stars in wrestling today. You're going to get to see a whole lot more of him this Sunday's Supercard, the best of Christopher Daniels, 8 p.m. Sunday night, right here on the Wrestling Channel. Okay, and continuing with our tradition of bringing wrestling legends right here to the Bagpipe Report to talk about the past, present, and future of professional wrestling. Last week we had Harley Race, and this week we've got a guest of just highest stature, a wonderful caliber, an all-time great in professional wrestling. He's been a part of so many of the greatest performers' history. He's been one of the greatest performers himself in front of the camera and behind it. I'm talking about the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, one of the all-time legends, talking to him live right now from Florida in the United States. How are you, Jimmy?
Man, I am wonderful. Did you tell everybody that I managed Hulk Hogan and Earthquake and Typhoon and the Nasty Boys and the Rougeau Brothers and Honky Tonk Man and the Hart Foundation?
We're going to be getting into that in just a little bit. You've managed some of the best.
You know what? It's been, sometimes Jerry Lawler once told me back when I was in Memphis years and years ago when I first started in wrestling. He said, Jimmy Hart, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. And he was right.
Well, I actually want to start off with Memphis. It's interesting that you and Jerry went to school together. Right now you're doing Memphis Classic Wrestling together, and early in your career, a lot of fans will remember that some of their first, most poignant memories of Jimmy Hart's work was back in Memphis. Can you tell us a little bit about that era and how you came into the wrestling scene there with Jerry?
Well, first of all, I used to have a group called the Genters. We had a million-seller record called Keep On Dancing. And matter of fact, over in London, there was a group called the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah, we know them well. We know them well.
Yeah, they cut our version of Keep On Dancing and also had a million-seller record off of it. But that was in music. Then I got into professional wrestling. I knew Jerry the King Lawler. I was doing music. He was doing wrestling. And it just kind of worked up that I teamed up with him to manage him, to make a long story short. Mm-hmm. And I spent 5 years in Memphis managing people like Jerry the King Lawler, Joe LeDuc, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, the early days, the Road Warriors before Paul Ellering managed those guys, and Terry Funk and Dory Funk, so many of the guys that came through Memphis at that particular time, even Randy Savage back then, and the immortal Hulk Hogan. I managed Hulk back in the early days of Memphis too when he was Terry Bollea.
When you talk about Memphis wrestling, you have to talk about the whole Andy Kaufman situation because it became so big. The movie, that Jerry Lawler, it was one of the greatest things in wrestling history simply because until a couple of years ago, just about everybody thought that it was a legit feud. And I wanted to ask you, as someone who had firsthand experience, what was Andy Kaufman, one of the most mysterious people to wrestling and to comedy and entertainment, what was his attitude to the wrestling business?
Well, I was with Andy for about a year and a half there. I really managed him at ringside, and we shared rooms together on the road, and he loved wrestling. He really loved it, and he loved performing. When we were being in our rooms together down there, he loved Elvis Presley. He'd always talk about Elvis Presley and the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. For some reason, he was really fascinated with Buddy Rogers. And so, we'd look at old wrestling magazines, but he really loved professional wrestling. And when Jerry Lawler told me we were bringing him in to do some stuff with him, everybody back then was kind of skeptical, but it turned out to be one of the biggest draws we had. I managed Andy against Jerry Lawler. Of course, then Andy and I teamed up against each other, and then we turned back and became partners again because down there we'd run so many angles. These angles would last 5, 6, 7 months, but Andy was fabulous.
Do you regret, to any degree, that Jerry Lawler finally spilled the beans on a nationwide, on a worldwide scale, that it was indeed an angle a couple of years ago? Would you have preferred that it continued to perpetuate the myth and the rumor?
Well, it didn't really bother me too much because months and months before that, I think Vince McMahon went on TV and said wrestling was entertainment, and I think he showed a piece with Eddie Guerrero on one of their Survivor Series or SummerSlams or something, working a match with Rob Van Dam. And I think once they went on there and did that on Confidential and told everybody how they ate dinner together that day and did a ladder match together, and really kind of exposed the business then. So
yeah.
I think that that it's really public knowledge now that everything is kind of pre-orchestrated and put together. So it really didn't bother me. King, anything to make a buck.
Now, in the 80s, WWF is really looked back on and described as this golden aura period for professional wrestling. Things were changing so quickly. The WWF was the place to go. Vince McMahon was picking the top talent from around the country in an effort to make this big national promotion, and he succeeded in doing so. Of course, you're one of the big talents he picked up. What was the vibe like in the mid-late 80s? WrestleMania was starting, you were bringing in the ring music. Of course, you were so much responsible for so much of that ring music when ring music was only just being introduced to the industry. Of course, everybody has their own theme music these days, no matter where they wrestle, even in their backyard, but back then it was just coming in. What was the atmosphere like backstage at WWE between 1985 and maybe 1990?
It was unbelievable. We were all like a fraternity. We were all like a family. I mean, we traveled on the road together. They ran 3 cities a night back then, and so we had different crews in each city, and our paths would cross. But we were like a big family. The WrestleManias were something special. Vince took a major chance on putting that together. What a lot of people don't know too, when I was called to come up from Memphis, Tennessee, Lawler and all these guys, oh my God, they were all upset. Jimmy Hart's leaving. I was threatened. Harley Race, when he had his territory going, the people that left his territory, he was threatening Vince. Everybody, all the top stars that were taken out of these different areas to make WrestleMania work. Vince McMahon had a dream. And so it's really funny that all the people that were going to threaten us back then eventually wind up working with Vince. Jerry Lawler's still with him now. Harley Race has done stuff with him. The list goes on and on. Dusty Rhodes and all of them have been back and forth up there. But at that particular time, all the promoters, they didn't want to see Vince take over. They didn't want to see him run the world. But this guy had a vision, and it turned out to be a home run. But, Vince took a big chance back then, getting a loan from the bank, a mortgage his home and everything for this dream called WrestleMania. I was on WrestleMania 1 through WrestleMania 10. What a thrill it was for me coming from Memphis, Tennessee, and being there with Muhammad Ali, being in Madison Square Garden. It was just tremendous.
What was the point where people went from, there was a specific point, I want you to help me pinpoint it, where people went from, how dare you leave my territory, what are you doing, you're a backstabber, you're joining Vince, Vince is evil, what he's doing is wrong. And I know that Vince got so many threats as well because this was against the etiquette. Everybody had their own region, their own promotion to present, and no one was supposed to go outside their boundaries. At what point did people stop saying, you better not go, and did they start saying, can you please take me with you?
Well, I think once they saw what Vince was doing and what it was all about, because really, all he did was have a TV. He couldn't be in every town at once, but the local promotions, they were just little mom and pop deals like grocery stores somewhere where you do it very locally. You do your little area. I know our territory was like Memphis on Monday night. Tuesday night we were in Louisville, Kentucky. Wednesday night was Evansville, Indiana. Friday night we kind of had a small spot show around, over in Arkansas somewhere. Then on Friday nights we do Tupelo, Mississippi. Saturday morning live TV at Channel 5 in Memphis. Saturday night Nashville, then we'd start all over again. And that was just our area. Florida had Florida Championship Wrestling. Georgia had Georgia Championship Wrestling the same way, too. But I think everybody realized that this had a dream, and he was getting mainstream TV out of this and drawing big numbers. And that's when I think all the smaller areas decided, you know what, feet don't fail us now. We're headed for New York, baby.
Are you still involved now with NWA TNA?
Yeah, what I'm doing now, I'm doing about 1 million things. Every 2 weeks I go down to Memphis with Jerry Lawler. We do our UPN show down there in Memphis Wrestling. I'm up here at Universal Studios now helping the Jarretts out. My company got them in, a friend of mine got them in Universal because I knew the people at Universal. And also, that's where we did our XWF tapings, and I knew them. And then he knew a friend at Fox Sports Net to kind of get them on that, because they've been filming for 2 years at the fairgrounds and really not making a lot of headway of doing stuff. It's once again, if you stay in the same place for so long, like ECW did, you finally kind of get burnt out. You know, the audiences get burnt out. They get tired of seeing the same thing over and over. And you've got to get, you've got to have money generated. You've got to sell merchandise and get some things happening. So this way it gives them a chance for a fresh audience to see them every week, not the same thing every week. And also it gives them a chance to get on free TV on Fox Sports Net for the people actually to see their product without having to pay for it. So hopefully it's going to help them in the long run. So I do a lot of promotion for them now.
I've got a two-part question for you now. A is, what do you think of the TNA product? And B is that they're promoting themselves now based really around the X division, about the high flying and the high spots. But traditionally in wrestling, it's not the spots that draw. It's not the stunts, which are impressive but don't generally draw consistent ratings, consistent buy rates. That comes down to the characters, the markability of the characters, the marketability, how much people identify with the characters that are given to them, how consistent they are. What do you think of the product, and what do you think of the direction they've taken in terms of selling that product?
Well, you know, I do this. I watched the X Games last week because it was special. It came on one time a year. If I saw the X Games every week with the same bicycles doing the same maneuvers and the same skateboards doing the same thing over and over, week after week after week, that'd be kind of boring, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what's happening, I was sitting with Dusty Rhodes watching one of their shows, I guess about a month ago, and Dusty Rhodes summed it up. He said, you know, I feel like I'm at a stuntman convention, you know? And what it really is, I still think, and the talent's tremendous. All these kids are wonderful, bar none. But once again, you've got to dress them different. They've got to be able to talk. They've got to be able to create a character. And I think that's what made the 80s so special, is because Honky Tonk was different than Coco Beware. Coco Beware was different than Kamala. Kamala was different than Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was different than Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby the Brain Heenan was different than John Studd. Everybody had a different look. Everybody was different. But I still think that you still have to have a little something for everybody. You have to have a cruiserweight match. You have to have a ladies match. You have to have a tag match. You have to have a heavyweight division. And I think that's what makes everything the way it really is. And I think they've got a great talent. They've got a great show. But I think you just hit the nail on the head. They need some giants in there. They need some cruiserweights. They need an X division. But the X division needs to look different than the opening match on the show. You can't open the show up and have an 8-man tag, and then the next match is a 4-man tag, then the next match is a 6-man tag, you know. And I think what really hurts the business more than anything, just my opinion, is both shows are almost doing the same thing. Down there with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, they have a director of authority. Now, the director of authority can come out 3 or 4 times, change matches, or do anything. Vince up there, they kind of have a leader. Whoever's on the Raw show is kind of the director of authority there, who comes out and rearranges things. Then on SmackDown, they have somebody else. I like the traditional thing we did years ago, where what's wrong? The marquee says wrestling. It doesn't say man shot out of a cannon. So why can't it be done that way? You open a show up with your announcers. They tell you who's going to be on that show. The people at home have a chance to either watch that show or don't watch that show, where you don't have where really the board of directors is a secret committee that the announcers go, hey, next week you're going to see the main event between so-and-so, so-and-so. I think most shows are so much alike now because of this director of authority or the commissioners or CEOs or whatever they call them, that it doesn't really make any show different. That's just my opinion.
For a long time, they were building up to a Jeff Jarrett versus Hulk Hogan match. In fact, the whole idea originally was that they'd face off in the first ever TNA 3-hour pay-per-view, which at one point was called Bound for Glory, I believe. That whole plan fell through. That whole plan fell through. Why did it fall through, and why is it that the deal never went ahead and we never saw Jeff Jarrett versus Hulk Hogan?
Well, 2 things. Everything was perfect. Everything was beautiful. Everything had been discussed. Jeff Jarrett came over to New Japan Wrestling that Hulk set up over there for us.
The angle, yeah.
We let him come in, bust in on the press conference, you know, bust us all up and everything else. We took the tape back. I went down to TNA for 5 weeks to set everything up. But Hulk had to have his knee operated on, and then he went ahead and had his hip thing done. And so it just, timing wasn't right for that. It just, with the entry to the knee, which we thought was the knee, but the hip needed to be worked on too. So now Hulk's getting back on his feet now. So who knows? Anything could happen in the future. But right now, all that took place. So the timing was just bad timing on all of that.
Right now they're talking about how they're going to move from the weekly pay-per-views and instead do one pay-per-view a month, a la WWF, WCW, ECW, every major company that's done pay-per-view. Do you think this will be a positive step forward for the company?
Well, you know what? It's like I said before. If you have the same talent on week after week after week on a free TV, then you have the same talent on a pay-per-view TV. I mean, you answer it yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, why are baseball ratings down? Why are some of those things down? Because now with cable TV, you can see the same team play 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. Where really, back in our day, you used to get to see them on a Saturday or a Sunday, and those ratings were up back then. Mm-hmm. I think by going to a monthly pay-per-view, at least they've got a better chance of making it special than to do something. You know, it's hard to top yourself. You know, back in the early days, if you had somebody in Memphis, if you had somebody the first week, and I'm making this up, I'm just saying run over you with a scooter, then a tricycle, then a bicycle, then a motorcycle, then a car, then a bus, then a plane, then a tank, then you're out of business, you know, because you try to outdo yourself week after week after week. Yeah. And that's what happens with all these pay-per-views that run each week. They got to come up with something bigger and better each week to make those people buy it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it works like that. So now they've got a chance to settle down, create the characters more, put a better storyline together, and hopefully it'll come out making more money for them. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to shoot a couple of names at you here, some thoughts, just a handful of the legends that you've managed, some of which you actually mentioned at the outset. King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy, probably one of the funniest guys I'd ever met outside of the ring, but his work in the ring for a big man probably still is unbelievable.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart, oh my God! You know, when he says the best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be, he's right. He is such a great technician in the ring. I love Bret. I was with Bret and Neidhart this past weekend in Buffalo, New York, for a kind of a Hart Foundation reunion.
That's right.
The fans lined up. Oh, it was tremendous. The fans, it makes you realize that the past is still the future. Mm-hmm. But Bret Hart is great. I'll love him forever. I've got a new book coming out in September on ECW Books, and Bret was one of the ones who wrote some of the scripture inside, and he said, Jimmy Hart was my only manager, and I'm quoting from him. He said, he always encouraged me to be myself, and I did, because Bret was something different. You know, Bret was a good-looking guy. Usually, in wrestling, the guys that look good, the boys don't like, but the girls scream over him. Bret was so unbelievable that he had the girls screaming over him, but the boys liked him too because they liked the way he looked in the ring, the way he worked so hard in the ring. But Bret's just fabulous.
There's a criticism of Bret that he was a good, sound, technical wrestler, but he didn't have the spark, the charisma, the interview skills, that stage presence to carry the WWF title when he won it in '92. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I'd have to look back to see what the houses they drew back then because I was doing another thing back then. But you see, Bret was very different. Bret was not trying to be flashy. Bret didn't have any catchphrases that a lot of guys have now to try to draw off of. Bret was the real deal. When he went to the ring, he was very solid. He didn't want to go and cheat the people out and give the people a 3-minute match. Mm-hmm. He wanted to give the people 15 or 20 or 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think Bret was very, very different, you know. And a lot of people, you know, you forget, wrestling's a work. It's not the fastest guy that can run the fastest, a guy who can throw the football the fastest. It all goes back to who the promoter wants to push at that time and see what they want to do with it. And you've always, whenever you're the promoter, you're going to have people in your ear all the time going, oh, you need to put the belt on this guy. This guy's not this guy's not that. So who knows what was really going on at the time. But my money on Bret any day, buddy. I'll put my money on him.
An excellent example of a guy who is not known for his quote-unquote work rate or quote-unquote his big physical appearance is the Honky Tonk Man. He got over because of his interviews and because of his look and because of how he carried himself. What were your thoughts on working with him?
Honky Tonk Man was the Elvis Presley of wrestling, and I'll tell you why. When Elvis was in Memphis, he played blues stuff. Everybody says, oh, it'll never catch on. When Elvis was in Memphis in high school, he dressed different. He wore his hair different. He wore his clothes different. He talked different. And when you find people that are different, they're going to be the ones that stand out in the people's minds. Honky Tonk Man was different. When he was in Memphis, he was different. Honky can wrestle. Let me tell you what, when it came down to really wrestling, he could go. But he realized that him dressing the way he dressed, doing his interviews the way he dressed, that Honky was different. And that's why, you know what, when I'm on the road now and people ask me about stuff, when I'm doing these seminars or when I'm doing a personal appearance, people ask me about Hulk Hogan, the Honky Tonk Man, the Hart Foundation. Those are the people that usually they always ask me about.
People often say that Hulk Hogan is one of the most underrated workers in the business because he has that top spot, because he doesn't do a whole lot of technical wrestling back in his heyday in WWF, and because of that, a lot of fans are very critical of him while not recognizing the fact that he did exactly what was needed to be done, exactly the right thing at the right time to have the fans into the match, to sell the tickets. Do you think that this is? Do you think that people are too critical of Hulk Hogan? A lot of smarter unquote fans.
Well, Hulk's always said, I've never said I was the best wrestler. He said, I thought it was about who made the most money. And the way you make the money is for people to relate to you. Now, think about what you just said. We know that wrestling's not real, right?
Yep.
Now, the people that are criticizing Hulk for not being a good wrestler, if it's not real, then how can anybody be a good wrestler? Because it takes two to tango. It's two sides of a coin. So that means whoever your opponent is, it's got to want to do the maneuvers with you. If he don't want to do the maneuvers with you, then you're going to have probably the most stinking match you've ever had in your life. It'd be like a shoot fight somewhere, two guys just going in there tackling each other and blowing, and knocking each other out, blowing, bloodying each other up, and that really doesn't work. So the point I'm just trying to say, it's Hulk Hogan has made the most money. He's the biggest name out there. But here's the other thing too. I've seen him in Japan where those guys over there don't speak English and really lay those punches in and dive tackling and everything. When Hulk goes over there, he works a different style over there. So he knows a lot of good submission holds. He knows how to wrestle when he has to be, but he was smart enough to realize to make the most money, you got to be colorful, you got to say the right things, and you got to have a good look. And he had all three of those and took care of his body.
What was your thoughts on working with Earthquake John Tenta, who recently has come out and said that he is currently in a bout with cancer? We send our very best wishes to John.
You know what? And believe this or not, I don't know where my head's been lately. I'm up in Orlando, and he's from Orlando. I just heard that last week about that.
Really?
Earthquake and Typhoon were great. I love working with Earthquake individually. He was from Canada. We shared rooms together. We went up and down the road together. Awesome. What a great, everybody I've ever been with has been wonderful as far as I'm concerned, because I've had the big guys, the small guys, and everybody, but everybody was different, but all of us were like a fraternity. All of us, if he had problems at home or I had problems at home, anything, we all could talk to each other about it. What a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Now, we're going to change gears for a second here. XWF was kicking off a couple of years ago, had a lot of big names. I remember Hulk Hogan coming in, Mr. Perfect, the Road Warriors, Sable, I believe, made an appearance a couple of times for the promotion. Things seemed to go a little bit crazy. Vince McMahon brought back Hogan, brought back the late, great Kurt Hennig. What happened with the promotion then? And I've been hearing things that the XWF, we haven't heard the last of it, that it's on its way back. What can you tell us?
Oh, man, I am so excited. I'm so glad you mentioned this. We all, about 2 years ago, we had a dream of putting together this company called the XWF. And I wanted to do it at Universal Studios because I didn't want to travel all over the world, because I wanted a fresh audience. We did 10 shows in 2 days. Like WCW used to do. With WCW Day, when we'd go to for our Saturday night show, we'd film 5 or 6 shows 4 or 5 days in a row and do that. So what happened, I made a few phone calls. We got the late, great Kurt Hennig, the late, great Hulk of the Road Warriors, along with Animal, the Nasty Boys. Sable is our CEO, our commissioner, Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan. Oh, my gosh, we had interviews with Willie Nelson, Alice Cooper, also Gene Simmons of Kiss, and Paul Stanley. So we had AJ Styles before anybody used AJ Styles. We had Kid Cash before they used Kid Cash. Low-key. We had Carly Colon, who's up there in WWE now. So we used a lot of the people. We had Josh Matthews, who was in Tough Enough, who Vince got rid of. We used so many of the stars to put these shows together. I had Bobby the Brain Heenan. I had Jerry Lawler and Tony Schiavone doing the commentating. But we went in, as soon as we go in and cut the show, all of a sudden, Jerry Lawler gets a call from Vince McMahon. Sable gets a call. Piper gets a call. Hulk gets a call. So it made me realize then that what we had, people thought, oh, my God, this might be a home run. Here's old Jimmy Hart up at Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida. He's got all this top talent. That's why I said I still believe the past is still the future. Because now people still, when we go out and do autographs, people still line up in a row to see all of us guys. And so what's happening is we just purchased all of the XWF stuff back from the people who owned it. And I'm happy to say that I'm going to be coming to London in the next 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully, meeting with our wrestling channel over there, with our people, with Sean and everybody, and hopefully going to sit down with him to let the people see what really took place at WCW, all the backstage action of what took place, and make it kind of which will be really reality on what really happened, why it failed at that time, how our talent was taken from us. And we've got some of the most unbelievable matches. Can you imagine, with the late, great Kurt Hennig, managed by Bobby Heenan, fighting Hulk Hogan? Can't you imagine the people getting the chance to see that? The Road Warriors against the Nasty Boys. Jimmy Superfly Snuka and his sons on the show. AJ Styles actually talking. You know, down here for TNA, he doesn't even say anything.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be phenomenal. We've got all these great films that we're going to be coming over there with and putting them on DVDs. We've got the merchandise that people have wanted to order for so long, with the XWF logos and stuff on them. So we're looking forward to maybe getting a sponsor, bringing a tour over there, and bringing Buff Bagwell, who was on the show, bringing Conan, who was on the show, maybe bringing some of the superstars that you hadn't got a chance to see lately, and putting together a super show over there with the XWF. So thank you for asking about it.
That sounds wonderful. Do you plan on promoting new shows now? You're talking about bringing these guys over to England and to Ireland and to the scene over here. Do you plan on going back and doing more TV tapings along the same vein as these ones which you're currently promoting and talking to us about showcasing on the Wrestling Channel?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you see now, when Sable left us, she went with Vince. So now we can have our CEO back. Piper left us and went with Vince, but now we've got Piper back.
Yeah.
Hulk's ready to rock. We've got Jimmy Superfly Snuka that's out there. Bobby the Brain Heenan out with cancer is back in the saddle again.
Right.
So I'm just so excited about this because you see what happened. We put all this together. The people really wasn't on TV. Vince took them and got them hot again. Now they've left again, so now they're like being fresh with us. And so I'm just so excited about all this and coming over there for a tour and doing autograph sessions with the fans and making it fan friendly and getting the right prices where people can afford to see wrestling again and maybe coming over there a couple of days ahead and doing a wrestling school. You know, setting up a school where people can actually come out and get in the ring with some of your favorite wrestlers to see if you really do have what it takes. So I just and doing a reality type series over there. So I've been talking with Sean about it for the last couple of weeks, and hopefully we can do something that nobody else is doing in wrestling right now.
When this ball gets rolling, how can you avoid the same pitfalls which brought XWF momentarily out of the picture before? How can you avoid your top talent being picked back up by Vince McMahon again?
Well, because he's already picked them up, brought them over there to them, and now if they go back again and have to leave again, then shame on them. And plus, all the younger talent he's got now that's being pushed right now, you know how bad that would be for them to bring back some of the older stars back again? That would put them right on the bottom again, and I think there'd be a mass revolution if that happened, don't you?
It would seem to make sense, but, you know, when the going gets tough, Mr. McMahon has shown that he can play tough, and that's what happened last time.
And I love it. You know what? And that's what makes it, and that's why I still go up and do stuff for him, because I love Vince McMahon. He was great to me. I was there for 10 years. All the guys out there that work for him should call him every week and wish his health well and wish him well and wish him a happy birthday, because if it hadn't been for him and his dream of WrestleMania, the guys wouldn't have their homes and their cars and their families doing as good as they do. I love Vince McMahon, man. He brought me back for WrestleMania. I called up there, and he let me put the logos on my jacket and everything else. And matter of fact, when I come over there to visit Sean, with the Wrestling Channel, I'm bringing something special. I'm bringing WrestleMania 20 jacket that I wore for WrestleMania 20 for this for the award ceremony, and I have over 50 of the biggest names in wrestling, from Pete Rose to The Rock to Brock Lesnar to Sable to Hulk, to all the people that were on that show. I even got Hulk, who wasn't on the show. I went by his house and got that on there. But I'm going to bring that over for the fans to be able to come back and look at it. It's in a beautiful glass case, and it's autographed by all these legends that won't be back for another WrestleMania, because that was WrestleMania 20.
Well, we look forward to having you over on the side of the pond. Hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be able to showcase that jacket right here on the Bagpipe Report. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Jimmy. It's been an absolute pleasure. One of the all-time greats in professional wrestling continues to rock and roll after so many great, successful decades, and many great more coming up, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Well, we love you guys, and before I leave, just remember one thing, baby. Never trust a midget.
Get out of here. Thank you. It's competition time once again, and once again, courtesy of the TWC online store, it's 200 pounds of great wrestling merchandise, all official from TNA, from Noah, from Ring of Honor, and much, much more. You want this stuff every week, 200 pounds of it absolutely for free. All you got to do is answer one very simple question, and that question this week is, what is Scott Steiner's nickname? Is it A, Big Pumpy Duty, B, Rudy Tooty Fruity, or C, Big Papa Pump? You can text your answer A, B, or C, so you'll text it just like this, Blake A, Blake B, or Blake C, to the following number, 88066. You got a week to get your entries in, so hurry up and make sure you do so. 200 pounds of great merchandise from the online store at thewrestlingchannel.tv/shop could be yours. Go online right now and check out what you might want for free. It's time to open up the old TBR mailbag for more insights and information right here from the TWC offices. The first question this week comes from Dan Moss in Maidstone in Kent. And Dan asks the following question. Dear Blake, recently JR stated on Bite This that anything can happen and returns are always possible. Do you think we'll see the return of China? According to wrestling news websites, Six-Pack, formerly X-Pac, has been slated for a return now that he is out of rehab, which Triple H and Vince McMahon allegedly paid for. Do you think a return of the two is a good idea? And what roads do you think could be opened for future storylines if these two ever work for WWE again? Well, that's an interesting story there, and I wouldn't quite group X-Pac and China together. For one thing, the last we heard, they're not together. The last we heard, Sean Waltman, X-Pac, wants to be back together with China. He said so on his own message board. I don't like to be tabloid, but when he puts it on his website, there's not really a lot to be said about it. And China apparently is turning down his advances right now. It would seem that the fact that Triple H and possibly Vince McMahon paid for X-Pac's rehab would suggest that obviously they're on good terms, and of course Triple H, without any cynicism intended, is high up on the WWE roster and he's high up backstage, so it wouldn't be surprising if you wanted to return to WWE to see X-Pac come back. China, on the other hand, has been very critical about Triple H, very critical about WWE and Vince McMahon, which X-Pac has not been the last couple of years since being away from WWE. So anything can happen in wrestling. I think Sable's return last year to WWE after the lawsuit she filed against him a few years ago is proof of that. But I'd be a lot less surprised to see X-Pac return than China. Next up is Chris, who asks the following question. I read somewhere that TWC would have the rights to show FWA Academy shows featuring their up-and-coming stars. Any news on this? Also, any news on the situation between TWC and UPW? Cheers, Blake. Love the show. Well, from all of us here at TWC, thank you very much, Chris. Yes, absolutely. We are in talks with FWA. In fact, we've agreed to show the FWA camps. They sound very, very interesting. They haven't become available yet, but as soon as they do, I think we'll probably have them right here on TWC. So hang loose for that one. It should be coming up the next couple of months. Meanwhile, UPW, for those of you not familiar with it, promotion over in California, famous for having a lot of graduates go to WWE, including John Cena, who wrestled back there as a prototype several years ago. They're bringing out a new television show. Last we heard, it looks like it's being postponed a couple of months. It may not be out until January. But as soon as their new weekly TV show comes out in the States, we have been in talks with them, and I would expect to see the UPW show right here on TWC. Next up is John Brown, who asks the following question. Hi Blake, there's been some rumors about WWE doing a storyline on the Bret Hart and Ric Flair saga. Do you think that they will do that, and do you think that Shawn Michaels will ever get a WWE title shot again and win? Well, first of all, on Bret Hart, Ric Flair, it's a bit of a lose-lose situation, and here's why. There's obvious tension between the two. I don't think there's a whole lot of tension from Flair's side to begin with. Flair was a little bit critical of Hart's working style in his book. He didn't say anything mean about him personally, but he said he thought Bret was a little bit overrated. But Bret really shot back at Flair, using the F-bomb and all sorts of things, so I don't see that happening. Because Bret isn't an in-ring wrestler, and while he's expected back to WWE, he's not expected back to wrestle. It seems a bit redundant to have a feud between the two, since Flair is 55 and Bret has a concussion and hasn't wrestled in 10 years, so it doesn't seem to be a productive line to go down right now. Shawn Michaels coming back and winning the WWE title, it certainly could happen. It all depends on booking. Right now, Michaels is set to make a full return in the next couple of weeks. He's set to return to pay-per-view at Unforgiven, the next Raw pay-per-view a couple of weeks from now. I'm sure he'll be in contention for the world title. He always is. Whether he wins it or not, well, you can get your bets going right now. But he's not slated for any WWE Championship title shots as of yet. It's time once again to take a look at some upcoming shows right here in the UK and Ireland and across Europe. We're available in 30, 40, a lot of countries around Europe. Now, guys, if you got a promotion here, especially in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, we want you to send in your tapes. Let us know what you're doing. If you're up to scratch, if you guys are putting on a good show, we want to be here to promote it. We want to help you out. We want to endorse you. We want to help endorse the wrestling community. So check out the address on screen right now. Send us in a tape, send us in your footage, send us in what you got. Let us take a look at you, give us a call, okay? And we'll get your promotion right here, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Now let's take a look at some of the shows upcoming for these couple of weeks in the UK and Ireland. Premier Promotions, Thursday, September 2nd, the summer season of Wrestling Spectaculars at the Worthing Assembly Hall. Revolution British Wrestling is coming up on Saturday, the 18th of September at the Selbyck Hall in London. WZW Path to Destruction Tour, the Starlight Suite, Tyne and Wear, Sunday the 29th of August. United Kingdom Pro Wrestling, UKPW, is at the Waterside Theatre, Long Lane, Southampton, on Friday, September 3rd. FWA is in the Morecambe Dome, September 4th, and Hot Wired is at the Broxbourne Civic Centre, September 5th. Now let's take a look at the great shows coming up this week on TWC. Classic New Japan sees a heavyweight encounter between Tatsumi Fujinami versus Hashimoto. Then we head to NWA Wildside. We got girl-on-girl action with Chrissy Vane versus Jenny Taylor. Then we go to a six-man tag with Sweet Dreams, Skeeter, and Biohazard taking on Jason Blackman, Brad Attitude, and Scott Hotshot. Our coverage of New Memphis Wrestling continues with Shane Matthews versus Jerry Lawler and King Mabel versus Puncho. Major League Wrestling Underground TV sees Sanjay Dutt versus Jimmy Yang in a high-flying, high-spot encounter. Then we take it to the mat with two legends, Jerry Lawler taking on Terry Funk. Then it's to the vault with World of Sport, Mike Marino versus Caswell Martin, and Tony Scarlo versus the Dynamite Kid. We got all that coming up this week on TWC, and don't forget this Friday at 10 o'clock, brand new coverage of Pro Wrestling Noah from Japan. 2004 coverage starts Friday at 10 o'clock. And also this coming Monday, we got a shoot interview. As usual, it's a legend, Jerry the King Lawler, one of the most amazing talents in the history of wrestling. This guy has seen it all. This guy has done it all. If you ever wanted to see inside the business, check out his shoot interview this coming Monday. That's all about time we got for the Bagpipe Report this week. I have been Blake Norton. It has been my pleasure to serve you, the wrestling public, right here on TWC. Stay tuned, and next Friday we will see you once more for the latest news, the latest views and reviews, and much, much more in interviews right here on the Bagpipe Report.